Hey, it's Friday the 27th of October. I've actually been off work for the last couple of days. I've got loads of holidays to use by the end of the year, so I've booked another week off as well in November, so that should allow me to crack on with some of my sites and get some updates done on them. I'm actually walking along Chester Canal at the moment, heading to an artsy event on it's one of the towers on Chester Walls. I don't really know too much of what to expect really, but I'm sure I'll tell you all about it in another video after the event. But yeah, I just thought today I'd talk about a business networking event that I attended last night. That came about, somebody got in touch with me over LinkedIn about a month ago from Santander, just inviting me along to one of the networking sessions that they run in the branch. And I went into work the next day and told one of my colleagues, and he said it wasn't Paul Birch, was it, that got in touch? And it was, and it turns out he's my colleague from work's childhood friend from like the St Asaph area and Abergele. They grew up around there, and it's just purely coincidence that this guy had got in touch with me. He didn't know I was actually Jake's colleague. But yeah, I went along to that. Again, didn't really know too much what to expect because he invited me along a month ago. And then on Tuesday of this week, I got a phone call from him where it turned out I was actually going to be on the panel giving a talk. So there was two panelists. There was myself and another guy called Andy, and we had very different like presentation styles and things. I definitely learned a lot from him. He did a lot more like audience participation and things, getting people to stand up and put their hands up and things like that. Kind of reminded me of when I was doing my teaching at the summer school, getting all the kids involved with the lessons. But yeah, so he covered more sort of like eliminating yourself from the business and automating things. And afterwards I actually spoke to him and said, had he been influenced at all by Tim Ferriss? Because a lot of the things that he was covering, like Pareto's law, the 80-20 law and automation and things like that, were very Tim Ferriss-esque. Turns out he hadn't really heard of Tim Ferriss, but we talked for a bit about Jim Rohn. He absolutely loved Jim Rohn, who I listened to like all of his stuff a few years ago. If you've never listened to his stuff, check him out. He was sort of the mentor for Tony Robbins or Anthony Robbins, the NLP self-help guy. So love both of their works. But yeah, so my presentation was, I didn't have to prepare for it too much. I did take some notes along, but it was more just on sort of myself really. So I'm kind of an expert in that subject area. So it's just about what I've done from uni throughout my career, what I'm doing now, and then talking a lot more about sort of the Everything Chester thing that I'm running and all the social media really, and how the businesses that attended could use social media to their advantage to help grow their business and market their business as well. So yeah, I just delivered like a 10-minute presentation and then opened it up to Q&A. When I usually give presentations in the business centre at work, there's usually like loads and loads of questions. People put their hands up, and I actually finished and said, "Are there any questions?" And I just sort of looked out at a sea of no hands going up at all. After a few seconds, a lady called Jill put her hand up, and we sort of riffed about social media, and then other hands started going up as well. So yeah, I found it a really good experience. Presenting doesn't really come, or never came naturally to me. I had to sort of work on that when I was at uni. My first few presentations didn't go too well, so I like joined the debating club to force myself to be able to think on my feet and just talk around things as well. Yeah, and it was also great to network as well. So I met there was some people from like Chester University there, and they had taken some of the students along as well. So there was people that were developers and doing computer science. So chatted with them, made a load of LinkedIn connections and things. And then I've arranged to meet some of them as well over the next couple of weeks. So they do like hackathons and things. So I'm going to sort of mention them when I go to all the code up groups and things that I go to, and see if I can get some people together and see if they can build something of value really. But yeah, and I've also arranged to meet Paul as well, the guy that invited me along, because I need to set up sort of a business account and things to keep all the expenses and money for everything Chester separate from my own personal finances. So we're going to go through that, and he's going to talk through sort of the benefits and advantages of limited companies versus sole trader and things like that. So that should be good on my week off. I'm sure I'll tell you all about that. And then I actually left there and thought, right, I'll go for a pint in one of my favourite pubs to celebrate. So I went to a lovely little pub on Chester Road called The Boot. There's always someone in there that I'll know. So I ended up chatting with a few people, and then I ended up running into a guy and two girls at the bar who said they were attending like a poetry evening upstairs, and he said, yeah, you can come along if you want. And it just so happened randomly that the notebook that I had prepared all my notes for the presentation, you know, was also one which I'd wrote some sort of little rhymes and things whilst I was travelling. It was like my spoken word and free flow writing little notebook. So I went up and did like a 2-minute talk to them as well, just introducing myself as they went around the room. So listened to everyone would sort of read one of their pieces of work. When it got to me, I said, I'm not really ready to share at the moment, but just gave a little bit of an introduction to myself, but I'm sure I'll go along to that as well. So yeah, a few more than just the one pint that I intended. So I ended up stumbling out there relatively late, heading home, but I got to Chester Cross, which is like an intersection of 4 different roads, and I could hear some music, and it sounded pretty cool, so I was like, oh, I'll go see where that music's coming from. So I went up onto the roads on the other side where there's a bar and a guy playing guitar in there. And again, randomly, it just turned out to be this guy, Callum, who I've known in the past. I actually used to mentor him through this other scheme, but I didn't recognise him at first. So he finished playing the second song that I listened to, and I went up and said, is that a cover? And it was actually one of his songs. And then as I was speaking to him, it was about 2 minutes into the conversation, I was like, we know each other, don't we? And yeah, so he's a stand-up guy, and he gave me a copy of his CD. Yeah, I know he's toured with like the Libertines and things in the past. But yeah, that's the last couple of days, and like I said, I'm now heading to this event up in the tower on the walls, and I'm sure I'll cover that in the next video. Brilliant. See you then.